Hey there. I want to quickly show you a interesting little build with a couple of Raspberry Pi related things. I do a lot of software development, and in my day-to-day work of software engineering, I often need to test some things that are eventually going to make their ways into a real server, and sometimes you just want to test that on a smaller scale and make sure it works. So I'm in need of an NFS server for a Kafka cluster, and instead of going and purchase like a whole solution to do that, I thought, let me take a shortcut and use one of my favorite things in the world, Raspberry Pi. I have so many of them laying around. I use them for so many things. Home automation. I've got Kubernetes clusters on them. So let's run through something that I found that is very interesting. Now, this is not going to be an unboxing. This is just going to be me building it, talking through some interesting things I found. The two units I'm looking at is the the X1011 from Geekworm, and the case that it goes into, which is the X1011-C1. I ordered these two guys from AliExpress. They arrived a couple of days. It was not very expensive. You will need to check the pricing in your country. And there's a couple of quirks with them. So when you get the actual board, it doesn't come with a Raspberry Pi, obviously, so that's why there is a Raspberry Pi here. And unfortunately, no matter how much I try to stick it down, it's going to pop open for the video. And it comes with enough, or more than enough, bolts and screws and nuts and what have you to assemble this. But what they don't tell you is the case also comes with a set of screws. And if you want to mount this in the case, make absolutely sure that you use the ones that come with the case. All right. So what I've got down here, I'll point with the screwdriver, is the standoffs that came with the case and the standoffs that came with the board. There's one tiny little difference between the two of them, and it's quite pronounced when you actually build them. So if we grab one of these guys and we measure the ones that come with the board, you'll see that they're 5 millimeters in height. And if you grab the one that comes with the case, you'll notice that they are 6 millimeters in height. So that is the key here. If you use the ones that come with the board and put them in the case, then you're going to have fun. It's not going to fit properly. So I got the board open and I started fiddling with the board. I assembled the board, and then I got the case out and I stuck the board in the case, and it was all kinds of wrong. Okay, so these are the two little cases, the boxes that they came in, but obviously I've already unboxed them, so I'm just going to pull them out and then we can have a look-see at each one of them individually. I'll try to bring them close enough to the camera to have some detail. And this is the little case. And this X1011, sorry, X1011 from Geekworm, you can fit 4 NVMEs onto the PCI Express bus that is exposed by the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to put the case one side, so we'll just leave that alone. Let's look at the board. All right, so here's a little board. It can be powered by a DC input 5 volt. You'll notice that there is very little in the line of switching components here. So this is not, from what I can determine just by looking at it, this is not a power supply capable of changing the voltage in any way. This looks like it's maybe just a little bit of capacitance to assist with any droppage across the line. So this thing wants 5 volt DC. Putting anything else in there, you will fry the board. So do not even think you can stick in a 12 volt supply and it will adapt. A lot of these boards come with like a 12 volt barrel jack, and it'll have circuitry on it to switch it out. This does not have that. It looks like over here it's got a chip that obviously multiplexes the PCI Express to all the other PCI Express lanes over here for the NVMEs. So that's on there. Over here we've got some other bits and pieces. Now this looks like more of a power adapter of sorts, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. Best case I can figure is NVMEs require 5 volt and they require 3.3 volt. Now I would have expected that they would take the 3 volt from these little push rods over here, because this is the interesting thing about this board. You can power it with 5 volt over here, or you can power it directly using the USB-C on the Pi, and it will pick up the power from these little metal standoffs. So they're quite fragile. You can see that the little tips push in, so they've got a little bit of give, so that when they make contact with the board. So yeah, so either the board will accept power from here, so the Raspberry Pi will accept power if you supply it with 5 volt, or this board will take power also from there if you supply it with USB-C. Other than that, board's pretty nicely made, black. Obviously my fingerprints are showing up, but it's fairly nice. So again, we must grab the 6mm standoffs. 2 of them go in here. They can just screw into the one side. The other 2 need to have a little screw put on them. So it comes with a bunch of screws. So this over here was all the screws and the bits and pieces that came with the board. I have no idea how to make use of these little guys. All right. I could not find any way to get these screws to do anything useful with these. I'll show you in a second. There's nothing you can do. The screw, if you screw it through one of these little NVMe mounts, it will not protrude on any side. So it's the exact same length as this. So I don't think these screws are the key to be using here. These are supposed to go here to hold the NVMe in place, but how you would do that is beyond me. There's no screws included that would be able to bolt that onto this. So no idea. Anyway, let's carry on with the standoffs. Sorry, let me go through the rest of the screws. So yeah, that came with the board. It's all the mounts for the NVMe. These ones are the standoffs that came with the board. The 5mm, too short. You want the 6mm that came with the case. Then it's got a whole bunch of these tiny little screws, and they're all exactly the same. So there's only like 3 varieties. The tiny little NVMe screws, these longer screws with a bigger head, and then these tiny little ones with a tiny little head, pretty much the same thread as those ones. And then you get these 2 tiny little NVMe cables, and I'll show you why this one is all squiggly. You also get a little sticker with all the feet for the case. I opted to get the little battery for the RTC on the Raspberry Pi 5. And then over here I've got 4 NVMe drives. All right, so let's crack on. So these flathead ones are the ones that you would like to use to attach this. All right. This is completely unscripted. I'm just sitting here in my office assembling this, so I'm hoping it's not too boring. I won't be cracking any jokes or anything like that. All right, so we're going to give these guys just a tiny little bit of a tightening. This is not an engine. I don't need to torque it to any kind of crazy torque. Even here, you can see I just kind of used, a couple of fingers just to give it a little bit of a twist. And that's that. So that's the standoffs done. And so the tricky bit here is to decide what you're going to do first. So if I put on the Raspberry Pi first and I flip this over, it's going to be all wonky, and I'm trying to install the Raspberry Pi. So I reckon go for it without the Pi installed, and let's get the NVMEs in place. So they just simply slide in, and you can just align them neatly over there. Grab one of these little screws that came with the board. They seem to work perfectly just for holding this NVMe in place. So this is normally how I install an NVMe. So, no issues there. The little screw holds it perfectly in place. The NVMe is perfectly secure. And also the other thing I wanted to mention about those standoffs, because they're 5mm, if you had them in, you would notice that the NVMEs are too close to the bottom of the case. So that was a dead giveaway that something was not right, besides the fact that none of the peripherals are lined up correctly with the holes on the case. All right, so let's slip this one in, grab a screw. I studied electrical engineering many years back, and when I started everything was big. Now everything is tiny. And just getting smaller and smaller. There's no way to service these components yourself. There's no way to solder them. Well, some people do. Okay, there we got a bit of a misalignment. Let me just line this up a little bit better. Let me see. Yeah, we go. Right, so there we go. We've got all the little screws installed. NVMEs are all in. And if I now flip it over, I can start working on the Pi. Okay, let's get this guy installed. So it fits this way around. Okay, but you'll notice if I put that over there, got a bit of a trick there. There's the PCI Express connector. So if I put that on first, I'm going to have a hell of a time trying to get that PCI Express cable in there. So obviously we're not going to do that. Let's slip an SD card in here. So I've got Raspberry Pi OS on that. Actually, I do see two brown ones that came with this guy. So maybe those two ones are for the RAM. Just maybe. I'll have to read up a little bit more. So let's not risk it. Okay, so first things first, we need to get this installed, the little cable. And then you'll notice as I put this on, there's the little contacts that those little standoffs make with the USB connector. So I'm thinking, if you look very carefully, they'll probably make contact with 5-volt and ground somewhere over there. We'll measure it and see which ones it is. I've tested it already. It works perfectly with just that. So I'm sure it takes the right ones. If it only takes 5-volt from there, then I think this over here is a 3.3-volt regulator to give the 3.3 volts to the NVMe drives. But okay, so let's get this little cable installed. So this one is slightly different than the Raspberry Pi. See, it flips up like that. See, look there, it's like a little hinge. It flips up. Oh, where am I on camera? Yep, it flips up or flips down. So we'll flip it in the open position. And we'll grab our little cable. I'm going to take the one that's not bent to show you. It's kind of like an S-bend. And on the one side, it's got this 2 PIP and 2 Pi 5. So obviously that means to the Pi 5, that means to whatever this adapter board is called. So this one is a little bit wiggled because I've already installed it. So we're just going to reuse this one. So we're going to go to the bit that says go to the pip. And the pip bit has to go in there. And you'll see it goes this way around, right? Because there's no way, they don't have an up or down description in here. It doesn't say this side up or what have you. But if you just look at it, the Pi, if you line it up, the Pi is offset to my right-hand side. And the cable only makes sense that it can fit in that way. If I turn it the other way around to fit it in this way, it says 2 Pi 5 on that side, which is not the right side. So it can only fit in this one way around. So 2 pip, face down into there, and down. So I've had a bit of practice with these. So you may just want to feel around a little bit. So I'll lift that up with my thumb. So you'll feel that they slot in. They've got, like, you can feel when they're in the right place, because they're kind of very comfortable there, and they don't want to move side to side, and they don't want to move any further back, and then you just slot it down. Problem solved. Right, now that we've got that, we've got to mount the Pi. Now the thing is, the tendency is you're going to try to pick this up like this, and you're going to squish this little guy, so be very mindful of that. So what we're going to do is let's get some screws ready. So it's going to be these flat-headed black ones. And we're going to bring the Pi straight down from the top, so that what we'll want to do is line it up perfectly before we even put it down, so that those pins squeeze in exactly the right spot. So I'm just going to tighten this one just a little bit, just so I can see that everything is aligned. All right, so now once I've got the pie perfectly aligned, I just want to get my head in there, the light's in the way. All right, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little wiggle that way, and maybe a little wiggle this way. There we go. And I'm just putting these in. I'm not tightening them at all yet. You'll see that they've given you some extra screws, which is a good thing, because there's always the tendency to lose these tiny little things. All right, there we go. We've got that screw in, and missed the last one. Okay, now we can just go around the way and just give them a tiny little twist. You're not talking this. It's not a motor. It's not an engine. Doesn't need me. Okay, so I don't know if you guys know how to pop this little NVMe. Oh, sorry, PCI Express thingy off of here. So what I normally do is, you can see, I'll bring my fingers right up to here. I put my 2 fingernails right in the edge there, and then I slowly just pull it up. And you see it pops up like that. So this one doesn't hinge or anything like it. It just goes straight up and down. So there, I'll do it again. So put your fingernails in there and just pull it straight up like that. Now, the cable goes in from the top, and the way you can tell that this is ready to accept the cable, it's very wiggly. If it's down, then you feel it's very stiff. You can't move it around. So again, put my fingernails in there, pull up at the same time, and it pops out. And then it's ready to go. So I'll do it in this Raspberry Pi. Over here, in fact, I've already got this one pulled up, but I would have just grabbed it like that. Unfortunately, the little tab is in the way. Would have just grabbed it like that and pull it up. Now, putting this one in is going to be interesting. I've got this little tweezer with a little bit of a gooseneck, and I can grab it and twist it all the way around. Oops. Let's try it this way around so I can see a bit. Okay, so I'm going to grab it with this gooseneck, turn it around a little bit, and then you'll feel it sliding in, and it will go in pretty easy. It'll just sit there just right, and then all you do is you just push down on that little tab, and there we go. She's in. I've got the tab not pushed down all, well, I don't have the tab pushed down all the way, so let's just do that. There we go. And there we go. Oh, it wants pressure on both sides. Let's just do that. Just give it pressure on both sides with this. There we go. And the little tab is in. You'll know that something is wrong when you turn it on and the machine is not happy. You'll see all 4 of these LEDs over here. They'll come on as soon as we power it up. Right, so they'll be pretty much ready to go into the case. Let me bring that to the side, bring the case in. Whoops, that fell apart a bit. The case comes with all of its screws installed. So you'll find 4 screws at the back. I've already taken them out and put them over there. They are these tiny little ones with the tiny little heads. And the case will have the 4 LEDs over there for the, you know, the holes for the 4 LEDs. It'll have the hole for the SD card and a little power hole for the power button. Now, this is one disappointing part about this case. Is I'll show you when it's installed. It's got enough ventilation all over the place. The lid kind of hinges in and then hinges off like that, pretty much. There's no, you know, the only way it grasps is if you've put the 4 screws in the back, and then that's the little case. I stuck on the 4 feet, just pulled them off this little tab, and then you just line them up straight, stick them down, so at least it doesn't want to move. Right, so let's stick in the Pi. Now the Pi is interesting. So you would like the Pi to go in this way around, because that's where the LEDs, that's where the SD card is, and that's exactly where it is on this side of the machine. And you'll see there's the holes for all the other peripherals. So it goes in a little bit funny. You need to slide it very carefully along, and then it will just drop down at the bottom of the little case. You'll feel a little bit of resistance from the PCI Express cable. Okay, tiny little bit of resistance, and then you'll notice that the little holes lines up. All right, so we'll just quickly screw it down. We'll grab these little screws and we'll screw down this thing. So I'll hold it in place with my hand, line that up. These little screws are got tiny little heads and they're tapered. So once they're screwed in, they disappear flush with the case. So you won't even feel them except for a little bump. And they're lining up so straight, I don't even have to do anything too fancy to get them for this to stay. I just put my finger in there just to give it a little bit of pressure to stay, and that's that. I'll back off these screws just a little bit. I tightened this one a little bit too soon. There we go, nicer. And we'll put that one in. And now we can tighten them a little bit. Right, there we go. Sorted. Okay, so you'll see that this is neatly lined up. Got your USB-C power, you've got your HDMI, mini HDMI outputs. You've got your SD card, and you can see I can actually push it and it'll pop out. Or I'll maybe use fingernail. What? Oh no, the SD card doesn't pop on the Raspberry Pi. You need to pull that sucker out. Well, that's a bad design. I'm not going to use a SD card in the eventual use case. I'm actually going to stripe the OS across 4 of the disks, and then use the rest of the disks as a RAID 0 array. I just need speed and storage. And this is what I meant about the little button. It's just floating over by itself over there. What would have been great is if they made a little plastic insert that you would first put the Raspberry Pi in, it would hold it in place, and then you could just push on the little plastic tab and it would transfer the pressure to the micro switch that's in there. So that's a bit of an icky one. Yeah, I've got no idea how you would pull out your SD card out of here. You can't grasp it with anything. There's not enough space. So that's a pretty gnarly design. Anyway, let's get the lid on and let's power it up. So the lid just slides in there, drops down, gets 4 screws on the back. And you see I've got a lot left over. I have not put in the RTC clock because I haven't got a good way of sticking it to the inside of the case. I need to get some double-sided tape so it doesn't go bashing around all over the place. We'll do one more tiny little thing, and that's power this little guy up and just see. I should have left the case open. And in fact, let's do that. Let's leave the case open so we can see. All right, so put that down, pull the case. All right, so to power this guy up, we're going to need a screen, which I've got on this side. And what I can do is I'm not going to try to show you the screen because it's always horrible trying to see a screen camera from a camera. It's just, you know, a screen from a camera is just terrible. So all I want to really show is that it actually does come up. I'm trying to balance this so it doesn't fall. Come on. Ah, no, it's not going to work. All right, let's try the little stand. I'm sorry about the knocking noise. Oops, and there goes the screws. All right, so that gives you kind of like a bit of a view of that. Not really good, but that's not the point. We don't really want to see on the screen that much. I might grab the phone and just turn it a little bit so I can show you that. Okay, so we're going to need, whoops, there go some cables. We're going to need a HDMI cable. Let's get that around into here. I'll use this far one. Okay, probably going to need a mouse. Let me just get some stuff out of the way. Stick that into there. I'll bring the keyboard in from this side. Keyboard wants to now hook on everything. Stick that in there. Okay, so now all we need is to make sure that the screen is on. Oops, it's already on. There we go. Okay, that's powered up. And we get our, because I've got 4 NVMEs in here, you're gonna wanna use the official 27 watt Raspberry Pi. As you can see, I'm in Australia, so that's a funny looking plug. Definitely want this guy that can supply 5 amps at 5 volts, which the NVMEs are gonna need that serious amount of power. These are not the fastest of NVMEs, and I wouldn't recommend that you buy expensive NVMEs and stick them in here, because the PCI Express bus will never be able to utilize them fully. So these are some cheaper NVMEs. They still do, I'll show you the speed, it still does some good speed. Right, so there we go. We got power in, the little LED on the front went red, now it's green. I'll lift it up so you can see, I see it green. Fan is just started up. LEDs are flashing, the blue ones, and we got Raspberry Pi desktop coming up. Okay, so there we go, we got the desktop. I'm sure the light is going to cause us some issues. And let's see if we can move the camera, please. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's just see if we can see all the block devices, and then I'll do a quick speed test. So first things first, let's get that as big as we can humanly get it. LSBLK. I may have to do a little bit of a jiggle with the camera. Let me pull it down. And the light behind it is going to try to blind you. Oh, yeah, look at that light. Oh, no, that's not going to help. Anyway, so the fact of the matter is that the block devices do appear. I've got, if I just look at the screen, I've got NVMe, I've got the MMC block device, which is the SD card. Got NVMe 0N1, NVMe 1N1, NVMe 2N1, and NVMe 3N1. I've already partitioned these, so we can do a very rudimentary. Let me see if I've got HD param. Do I have an HD param in here? I do not. That's a shame. Oh, no, hang on. I used a different, I used something IO. Is it A? Oh, come on. Let me see if I can find it in my history. No, there's no history. Let's try sudo -s. Oh, there we go. I've got a speed test. All right, so let's see it. Hopefully it's not blinding you too badly. Let me see if I bring this back. Oops, a daisy. All right, so, oh, that's bright. Let's see if we can just get rid of that. Why does that not want to go away? All right, let's see. There we go. That's a little bit better. Wow, that was bright. All right, so it's a bit shaky. I'm going to move my hands around. Okay, so there we're going to speed test the first NVMe drive. You'll see the LED actually goes out when it's testing it. So the one LED is actually out. It's kind of odd. So it's the LED illuminates when the drive is idle. So there we go. We've got where's our speed? Trying to look past the camera. 1.7 gig a second. So you know, that's read speed only, so that's not anything to write home about, but on a Raspberry Pi, that's pretty damn good. Okay, so we're running the next process. That's on the next disk along, so you'll see the light number 4 went out. So Linux doesn't pick those things up in the specific order. You can probably force it to do that. But anyway, there we go. We've got 1.7 gig, and I've verified that all of them do exactly the same thing. Oh, I'm starting to shake my arms, I think. Right, 1.7 gigs. All right, I'll put this back on top, and I'll bring the light back so we can see. All right, so there we go. Ideally now, I need to figure out how I'm going to get the OS onto the NVMe drives and whether or not I can actually boot from one of the 4. I couldn't tell from the documentation on the website whether or not that's possible, but that's the next thing I will make a video about. And I've bought a whole bunch of other goodies as well, which we're going to play with as the channel carries on, and if there is interest. Right, I hope you enjoyed. Ciao, ciao.